welcome to this special segment here of the Two Shots podcast. It's called the Spurs Fan Spotlight. And we're going to be joined by our guest here, our special guest. We're going to be joined by James Pledger. He is the producer of The Blitz, which you can listen to on ESPN SA here locally on 1250 AM or 94.5 FM here in San Antonio, Monday through Fridays from 4 to 7 p.m. And he's also the co-host of the Saturday Morning Hangover, which you can listen to on Saturdays from 9 to 11 a.m. Welcome. I appreciate you taking the time to come out here and be interviewed by us.
What's up, Joe? How you doing, man?
Always doing good, man. You know, just trying to do my thing, you know, trying to keep upbeat about the Spurs in the upcoming season. And, you know, Pledger just likes to keep it real and throw the hot takes at us.
I'm sorry. I don't want to.
Yeah, I remember the last time we were doing this.
Life is better when they're good.
It is better. It's better for everyone. The air smells better. The weather's better. There's just a different aura here in San Antonio when the team is doing good. And right now, I think it's a new feeling for a lot of Spurs fans, and including myself and possibly yourself as well, because you're not notoriously a Spurs fan. You are what? You're from Houston, right?
I'm from Houston. I grew up, all my sports allegiances lie there. I'm an Astros fan. I'm a Texans fan. I'm a Rockets fan. That's kind of where everything was kind of rootly instilled, and I've just followed it since. But I made the mistake when I was young, early in my life. I never appreciated or liked Jordan, and I also never liked or appreciated the Bulls growing up as a kid.
Oh, wow.
And I decided years later that was never going to happen again. I'm going to at least respect and appreciate greatness, no matter if I like it or not. And so I've managed to, I respect the Patriots and everything they've done, the dynasty they've created, the Spurs and what they've done, Tim Duncan and what he's done, even to a lesser extent, the Warriors and what they did. It's not easy. And as a Rockets fan, it's not easy to win one or even two championships. It is hard. It is hard to be good, especially in the NBA, for long periods of time. And especially since the Spurs are doing it as a small market team that's not really luring free agents the way the Lakers would just to become relevant again. That's a very, very daunting and tough task to be able to do. So when that's happening, you have to take a step back from whether it's fan allegiances, if you don't like something, and just go, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's basically where the Spurs have been. You know, you've been covering them for a number of years here in San Antonio. So you've been privy to, I guess, the whole gamut of, going from them almost being contenders to where now they were legitimate contenders when they had the big three and Timmy, Manu, and Tony. And of course, we also had the great David Robinson as part of the trio. It was the Twin Towers, Timmy and David back in the day, until the departure or retirement of one David Robinson in 2003 after Spurs defeated the New Jersey Nets. But given all these things, I mean, you've seen this city and how it's just revolved around this team, and how special this team is to the fan base here. And not only the fan base, but it goes beyond that. It's drilled in the culture here as part of San Antonio being the only, professional sports franchise that we have here. It means a lot to this city. So I would like to ask you, was there anything that really stood out at you that was like, wow, this is a special bond between the fan base and the players, and the team. Was there any moment here that just kind of like, kind of surprised you?
Um, I mean, there's been multiple moments that surprise you, but with the Spurs, you're not really privy to a whole lot of moments. They're very calculated in what they let out of the building, in a sense. So you're not privy even to the good stuff. Um, so finding out more about Tim Duncan as you covered him, who he was as a person, his personality that wasn't what it was in the media, like that was fun. Talking with Tim before games about how the Bears were doing or something during the season, like things like that were really cool. And you don't get to really open up about it as much, but that was cool. I mean, I've been here for the gamut. I was a Rockets fan back when David was there, so I knew the Spurs were one of the teams always in the way that was going to be there at the end of the year. It was the Spurs, it was the Jazz, and it was the Sonics in the West back then. Like those were kind of the hurdles that you had to climb over if you were going to attempt to win a title. And the Suns, of course, because of
Yeah.
Charles Barkley. And those were kind of the 4-5 teams you had to worry about year in, year out if you were going to compete for a title, and that was in the early to mid 90s. So the Spurs have been good most of my entire life. They won their first title the year I graduated high school in '99.
Oh
And
wow.
so I remember, people around here going nuts, and the feeling, the exhaustion it reminded me of my own kind of relief in winning that first title as a Rockets fan back in '93. Like that, you kind of start to go, wow, 93, 94. I remember that. I remember what that feels like, and it sparked a memory. And although it wasn't a not so distant memory, it still like put me in that moment as Spurs fans were celebrating their first title. The honking up and down Commerce, all that stuff. The river parades, which kind of are unique celebration in and of its own here in San Antonio, because not everyone has a river to be able to put their players and coaches and the trophy on and just float it down. So that's kind of a cool, different aspect of San Antonio. When I started covering the Spurs, it was probably very beginning of the Big Three, because it was early 2000s, 2005, 2000 area, somewhere like that. So it was around the time of their second, third title. So it was 2003, 2005, because everything happened in the odd years until the last one.
Yeah.
They had this trend going that got disrupted by LeBron and the Heatles
Yeah.
and Ray Allen's shot. But no, I remember covering them that early then and just being new. And I was working for a station in New Braunfels and going to games and being really quiet and really shy in the locker rooms for the most part, because you're young, you don't want to step on anybody's toes, the veterans, all that stuff. And then there's Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and Monty Ginobili all kind of right there. So it's a little bit intimidating early on, but you become more comfortable the more you're at that setting. And
I can't even
that's when you
imagine you being shy.
start. But you develop a relationship when you see these people, 41 nights a year, you know?
Yeah.
So things become more comfortable. You get more used to certain people, and you start to see personalities within the locker room as you're doing the stand-ups in front of lockers and stuff. And Manu was always so almost presidential in a sense.
Okay.
He was eloquent in the way he spoke, despite that not being his actual language, and wanted to make sure that he was always saying the right thing. And you could tell that he, despite being so full of life and energy and exuberance and everything that you see on the floor and everything he is a person, when he's behind the microphone, he's very well spoken in terms of he knows the message that he wants to get across. And I think that comes from kind of that Spurs culture, as in a sense too. The problem becomes, I don't think fans really got to see up close the greatness of Tim Duncan in terms of who he was off the court. He was an incredibly cool dude. And everybody thinks of, like, Kawhi was known as Tim 2.0, the next quiet superstar, because that's who Tim was personified as. He was the quiet superstar. But they were different personalities when, the cameras weren't rolling and you weren't out in front of people. And I remember just some of the things that he would do in the locker room, some of the jokes he would play, some of the stories you'd hear behind the scenes. Like, those are things that I think Spurs fans would have, like, I know they appreciate Tim Duncan for who he is, but I think they would have insanely appreciated Tim Duncan for that.
As a
Like,
person, as the individual.
As a person, as an individual, outside of his incredible talent and leadership and ability on the basketball court and being one of the top players in NBA history. Like, he was such a fun, loving dude. And
Wow.
that was really cool to see. And so, as it went on, and then seeing after they were bounced in the first round by the Grizzlies, and Tim was dealing with that knee injury, and they wouldn't bring him back. They wouldn't bring him back to play through it. And then he, after that season, noticed a trend in the NBA, in a sense, slimmed down his body, made sure he was carrying less weight on his body since he was getting older, and that probably preserved his career, which allowed him to play as long as he did. Like, his ability to foresee the trend, adapt to it quickly, and then his workouts that he put in the offseason. Antonio Daniels used to be on a radio station, and he talked about it all the time, doing workouts with Tim in the offseason. You were trying to punish yourself, because if you agreed to sign up for those, he was going to put you through it. And there were just so many things that made him special that, San Antonio really should have a deeper appreciation for that I don't even think they know about.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that's also part of that Spurs culture, in a sense. And being a part of that Spurs culture has, we're going to put forth this, and that's it. And we're going to hide everything back here behind the curtain. And that's great. That works fantastically when you have Tim, Tony, and Manu and a set of guys that can, A, buy into the culture, and B, get other people to fall in line with the culture.
Yeah, definitely.
It becomes a lot harder when you're losing.
Yeah, it does. I got to ask you one thing, though. After seeing all these Spurs greats, you saw the big three in action. You were there. You got to see them interact with one another beyond just, the scope of the game. Which Spur, to you, has stood out, and you can say, you know what, I really like this Spur. This particular San Antonio Spur is my personal favorite. Is there one, or you have to pick more than one?
Um, I mean, there are a couple. Tim was great once you got to know him. Steven Jackson was a good dude. Steven Jackson, Captain Jack was great. Still is great. Doing great things in the media, doing great things in society. Like Captain Jack's a great dude. Thinking over the years of all the kind of random Malik Rose was fun. Malik Rose is a fun dude, but I think San Antonio got to see his personality for the most part.
Yeah.
I think they knew who he was as a person. I'm trying to think of people that behind the scenes were, because Captain Jack has that, he's just crazy. That he has that vibe. He's not. He's a smart dude. He's a good dude. He's passionate. There's a difference between crazy and passionate. And he's an incredible talk. He's an incredible guy to get around, and just working with him more so than covering him. Because while I may have covered him, I don't think there was much. I think it was like 1 year maybe. But Antonio Daniels is just a really, really, really good person. He's funny. He's eloquent. He's well spoken. He makes you think about things from a completely different perspective, and he does it very well. And he makes you, step out of what you believe, what you think, and make you take on another perspective just to give you perspective on something. And he's incredibly talented at that. And that's why he's doing work for Sirius XM NBA radio and stuff now. He's a super insightful guy, but on top of that, he's just a very good person and a caring person.
I actually got to see him one time because the church that I go to, Westover Hills, the Westover Hills Church right here by my house. I went one time and I had no idea he was going to be speaking that day. I just went in there with my family as we normally do on Sundays. And lo and behold, I see Antonio Daniels and his wife. They're talking to the congregation on stage, and the stories that he was sharing, just, from his personal life and the trials and tribulations that him and his wife went through. And from a personal standpoint, for him to go up there on stage and share this, it was very inspirational. And for one, it was very brave of him to humanize himself that way, and just to come out and be completely honest with complete strangers. And then the one thing that really took me aback is afterwards you were invited to come down, and he would shake your hand. He would take pictures with everybody, say hi.
Yep.
Really nice guy. I know exactly what you're saying. You couldn't say enough good things about him.
That's who Antonio is as a person, though, whether it's individually or in a setting like that, cameras on, cameras off. He's just a great human being. And one guy I wish I would have gotten to cover and know, mainly just because I hear of all the reports of what a Richard he was, and I wanted to find out for myself. I would have loved to have been able to cover, get to know Dennis Rodman for the short period of time he was here.
I knew you were going to say that, the worm. Yeah, there's been a lot of hearsay about Dennis Rodman, but the context that I hear from reliable sources is the guy is a great teammate. You love him as a teammate because he's going to go out there and he's going to give you every single thing that he's got. He's going to go out there and battle for you. He's going to go out and fight for you and give you everything he has every game, and you couldn't ask for more. Whatever he does in his personal life is up to him.
But you gotta take the good with the bad, though, because he's not going to fall in line on the court all the time. He's not going to fall in line by showing up to practice all the time.
No.
He's not going to fall in line by doing, the little things outside of the lines but once he steps in between the lines, you're going to get it from him.
Yeah. He was a very unconventional player. He just marched to the beat of his own drum. And, at the end of the day, you see what he was able to accomplish throughout his career. Yes, he had a stint here in San Antonio, but damn, he was just an all around great player, Besides what he did, on and off the court, he was entertaining to say the least. I mean, when you had him on your team, you were going to be entertained.
That's true. And you knew if he was on your team was going to be covered by the media because they would follow him.
I mean, he brought Madonna to San Antonio.
Being covered by the media, not always been a thing in San Antonio.
Yeah, I still remember the time he had Madonna. He had Madonna here. Oh, yeah. He had Madonna show up one time in the stands. And she was wearing the jersey and everything. I was like, man, this dude, man, he gets around. That's like Rodman was a character. Rodman was a character. Maybe that's one of the reasons that he didn't really fall in line here, because of his flamboyant attitude and just what he would do. He was out there, and unfortunately, it just wasn't a good fit for the Spurs culture. But damn it, if we wouldn't have just hung on to him and kept him and surrounded him and David with some other pieces, the big three, who knows what could have happened,
It's fun to think about what could have happened, but it takes a special locker room to be able, like, if you saw the Last Dance documentary,
yeah,
and that 10-part series, and what the Bulls had to go through for that second three-peat with Dennis Rodman and everything, like, there's not many coaches like Phil Jackson who's like, yeah, go to Vegas, be back in time. Like, that's not gonna work everywhere. You have to have a certain leader in the locker room, like a Michael Jordan. You have to have a certain head coach who gets his players, like a Phil Jackson. And you have to have a certain set of complementary guys who also know who they are, like Steve Kerr or, Scottie Pippen. Like, you have to have a certain foundation in place. And I don't think there was any, like, David couldn't be Michael.
Yeah. There's a lot of structure here.
David doesn't have it in him to be, the Rick. I don't think. He can't do that the way Michael can, to where he's going to undress you in practice. Was it Bob Hill that was the coach at the time, or was it Pop?
I believe at that time, I want to say it was Bob Hill. I think
Bob Hill's not the coach for Dennis Rodman. In no way is Bob Hill the coach for Dennis Rodman. But those are just things that it's kind of the perfect storm, and why the Bulls dynasty worked, because of the personalities that you had. And if there was somebody that didn't fit into that, they got rid of that personality, because you had to know how to work with it. Everybody knew Michael was the guy, and Michael was going to demand from you, whether it was in practice or whether it was in the game. He demanded a certain something of you, and he wanted, and like Kerr said, punched him, and Kerr got right back up and got in his face, and that was it. All of a sudden, Michael Jordan trusted Steve Kerr to not back down.
Yeah.
Those are the types of, different attitudes that fill a locker room, and they have to fit so perfectly. And that's why team molding is so intricate. Because you're not just fitting players and how they fit together on the court together. You're also trying to fit personalities together that will mesh well off the court and find a way to make those work.
Yeah. I got to ask you a question, though, man. Out of all these, Spurs championship runs that they've gone on, which one to you has stuck out as the most special one to you in your eyes? Because every fan is different. Everybody has a championship run that they hang on to. This was the best one. Which one has really stood out to you and just seemed extra special in your eyes?
It was the last one.
14.
And it's not close. Everybody loves to point to the one against the Pistons because they feel like that was the best team they had to face. I never thought when they beat Cleveland that was a very good team. The Knicks team they beat for their first one was depleted. They were without Latrell Sprewell or Allen Houston. Patrick Ewing was hurt. Like that team was just it was a mash unit by the time that they got to the finals to face the Spurs. The Nets weren't a very good team, so like the best team they had faced to that point was that Pistons team until 2014, because that was the best team they had faced, period, because it was the ushering of the Big Three era for the most part. So it was the very beginning of that. The fact that you should have won the year previously and that they bottled and focused all that energy into a revenge tour year of we're going to get back there and we're going to kick their ass. And that's something that you don't get to see very often. And on top of that, the fact that it's not that it was LeBron and Chris Bosh and Ray Allen and the Big Three, but the fact that you're doing this, God, 14 would have been 15 years after the first title.
Wow.
So you're talking about the same core group of people for the most part, or the same at least core MVP in Tim Duncan. And then the same core group that won you the previous ones, all these years later, still playing at a high level. Tim Duncan, who was thought to be done after, that knee injury and the way the big man was phasing out of the game in a sense, to that point of the NBA. He had slendered down. He had remade his body. He kind of redone his game. His game translated well with the, fundamental backgrounds and the bank shots and all that like that. That translated well to his game aging well. You had a new up-and-coming superstar in Kawhi Leonard. Tony Parker was still playing at a very high level. In fact, if they hadn't lost that one before with that Ray Allen shot, I truly believe in my heart of hearts either Tony Parker or Danny Green would have been the MVP of that final series.
Yeah, with that
because of how they were playing. It was a culmination of a whole bunch of different factors, mainly the bottling up the resentment of losing to them the previous year when they know deep in their hearts they shouldn't have. That was a fluke bounce that, long bounce comes out. Everybody's wondering where Tim Duncan was, but like I get it. It's a long rebound. Like you're not your bigs are typically, and so I think about it in the way that they came back and the way they channeled that focus from the previous year and everything they went through, from the shot to the Game 7, like all of that stuff. And the fact that they probably not only could have but should have won that series anyway. They were able to bottle that, focus that. Tim Duncan kind of remaking the way he plays his game. All these players, all these years later, and doing it against one of the greatest teams ever assembled in terms of, LeBron, Bosh, D. Wade, Ray Allen. Like you're looking at these players that they put together that were supposed to be this unstoppable force. And the Spurs not only should have stopped it the year previously, but did put a stop to it the next year. And not only did they put a stop to it the next year, but they impressively beat them that year in the revenge tour.
Yeah.
There was no question about it. Like, that was a domination of that team in a sense. And the fact that, you had this homegrown guy that you took with the 15th pick that you traded beloved player, and George Hill was becoming an emerging superstar and was emerging right in front of your eyes as a two-way player. Like, that was all really special to see kind of happen all at once.
Yeah, it was, and I got to tell you one thing that I got to come back and ask you, because you being a Rockets fan,
Yeah.
I know you saw that block by Manu Ginobili on James Harden
Mm-hmm.
when they met up
This
in
is
the
a great
playoffs.
block.
Like, what was your thought when you saw that? Could you believe that actually happened, or were you just
Yeah,
kind of surprised?
I was mad. I was mad. It sucked, but at the same time, I'm like, that's who Manu Ginobili is. Like, I've seen him do Manu things all the time, and that was one of those Manu things that he does.
Yeah,
And so it was really cool, in a sense, to just be like, wow, another Manu moment, because
yeah,
he has so many of them,
yeah. That one
and
stood out to me.
that one's obviously. I mean, the Manu block is, if you think about it, it is a lot like, for Rockets fans, what Tracy McGrady is to Spurs fans.
No, yeah.
There's that one thing that you will always remember
Mm-hmm.
about that player, and it's not a good thing.
That it is not. But the Rockets and the Spurs have met in the playoffs, and it's always been entertaining. When they meet in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs, it just seems it doesn't matter what the records are during the regular season or what they're seated at. It's much like the Dallas Mavericks. They just, when these teams meet, they just
Mm-hmm.
come at each other with everything they got. And it seems like they get up a little bit more for this because it's the interstate rivalry, which I love. I think
Yeah.
it's good basketball for the fans. No matter what team you're rooting for, you're gonna be entertained. It's gonna be a dogfight, and I love that. I love when the Rockets are good. I love when the Mavericks are good. And I like it when the Spurs are good. Now, granted, they haven't been very good this last season, but when all these teams are good and they face each other, man, you're going to be in for some great games, man. I just love it.
Don't worry, they're hopefully not far off. We'll have to see how the draft goes this year. We'll have to see what happens this off season with player options and things like that. And we'll have to see if there are any trades that come down the line as we get closer to the NBA draft. And if somebody wants to make a move to add another superstar to a group in Brooklyn, possibly, or
Yeah.
if somebody wants to add some more low post scoring somewhere in like Boston, or maybe somebody who can not only do low post scoring but also pick and pop a little now and send them home in Portland. Like, there are options to unload contracts, to open up moves that will make this team better quicker. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see how things play out moving forward with the San Antonio Spurs, because they are facing, when you look at the Western Conference and who's there, who's about to be right back there in the Golden State Warriors once they're healthy, and the possibility of the future and what it holds for the Spurs. I mean, you have to look at it instead of, wow, all these teams have all these players. You have to look at it with optimism, which is why, especially during our presidential debate with Jeff Garcia of Spurs Zone, like, I'm like, trade this guy, trade that guy, blow it up, do what you got to do, because you have to have the optimism that they will make the right moves to get this team back into position, because what they have, we've seen, while good, not good enough in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Not when you're dealing with LeBron or Kawhi or Jokic or Luka or
Even an
the
Anthony
Warriors
Davis.
when they're healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like these, you need to find something, and your tandem of DeMar and LaMarcus went as far as I think you can take it.
Yeah.
I love DeMar. I'd love to see maybe him stick around a little bit longer if you can But if you can sign and trade him and get some pieces, same with LaMarcus, it's hard to argue with that because if you try and stay relevant and only hang around the middle, it's really hard to find a superstar that will take you to that next level. Like
Yeah.
the one of the only teams that I can think of that ever like rebuilt without bottoming out was the Rockets. Like somehow Daryl Morey took that team that had T-Mac and Yao, and then the injuries happened, and he managed to trade for different middling supers. I mean, Kyle Lowry turned into Jeremy Lamb, which turned into it was piece after piece after piece after piece until he finally acquired enough first round picks and young talented assets to go get him a James Harden.
Yeah.
And that's not done very often in the NBA, is where you can acquire a superstar who's not quite a superstar, but you see the potential of superstar in him so that you offer something to get that player. And you know, without a top pick, it's just really hard to find that guy.
Yeah.
And other than what the Lakers did, which is signing them in free agency, which in San Antonio we know is not a good way to try to go about focus on bringing in that next superstar.
Yeah, not at all. We're such a small market here that it's not very attractive to some of these big name superstars who want not only a good
And I don't
contract.
agree. I don't agree with that in a sense either. Like the market thing.
Yeah.
Like all teams can spend the same amount of money. After
Yeah.
that, you have to pay a tax. If you have an owner that's willing to pay the tax, like Tillman Fertitta is, then cool. Or the buses, cool. If you got somebody who's not willing to spend over the cap in order to get you a championship, then that's going to be detrimental. Because player salaries are capped. You have a max allotment you can give a really, 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 really good player. You
Yeah.
have a super max allotment that you can give a really, really, really good player. And then you try and figure out how to fit other pieces into that with as much money as you could possibly spend. And notoriety, like these people are their own brands. Like
Yeah.
LeBron would be a star in San Antonio, he would be a star in Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo is a nationwide star in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Like playing in New York has nothing to do with it anymore because of social media, because of the way the internet allows people to watch games, because of the way the NBA is consumed now. There's no such thing as small market. There's such thing as an owner that wants to spend like a small market, maybe, but there's no such thing as small market in terms of exposure
Yeah.
because that's gone away in the last decade.
Yeah. I just, what I mean by saying small market, what I'm referring to is the ability to said player to be a brand ambassador for some brands that are maybe local here that have a nationwide following. Something like you would see out of LA because there's a lot of movie stars and a lot of movie houses there. That seemed attractive
But
to him. We don't really have that here.
Here's the thing, Joe. Like DeMar DeRozan can push a brand in New York if he wants. It doesn't
True
matter.
enough. Yeah.
I mean, people love it. Like Steph Curry is a brand outside of Golden State. People want Steph Curry's jersey. People want Steph Curry's name on things. Like
Yeah.
the JJ Watt is a brand despite being in Houston.
Yeah.
So like the whole you need to be in a big market to get a big market deal or a big market brand. That's not true anymore. That's not the way that things work anymore. The NBA finds the best players, and those like small market always kind of revolved around how much you see them on TV, how much you see them on national TV. But with new TV deals, you see everybody a lot on TV. And
Yeah.
if you're a really, really, really good team, you're going to be on national TV a lot. And if you're going to be a really good team, that means you have really good players that will appeal to those bigger market brands.
Yeah. Or if you're a very popular player, you're going to get TV deals and, not only for commercials, but brands as well. Nike, Puma, whatever, want to throw money at you because you're a big name. You're a big deal, So
let's face it, Kawhi Leonard hasn't done any extra deals since he made the move to LA.
Yeah, true enough.
Like, he's always been a New Balance guy. Like, it's not like he's pushing muscle milk down our throat or anything right now. So, like, the whole notion of moving to a big market to get big deals it's a fallacy because of the way the world works now.
Yeah, the money.
Like, you could have a big market idea. You could be LeBron James playing in Pittskamona, Utah or something and still be worth $500 million because he's a brand unto himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't need the team to make him a brand. Like, LeBron James going to the Lakers didn't make him any extra money.
No. Oh, we got him a movie deal. He's starring in that Space Jam movie, but beyond that,
he had a movie deal.
Yeah,
he had a movie deal, because it's his own company.
Yeah,
like the movie company is LeBron's.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
So that's his movie deal. He bought a movie company. So moving to LA didn't do that. LeBron buying the studio did that.
Yeah, he just moved to the right place to get the movie made. It was closer to him. He didn't have to travel across country.
He made his commute easier. That's
all. Exactly. But you know what? I got to be honest with you, man, because we're going to start bringing this to a close here. But you're talking about players making their own brands. One of the players that I see slowly but surely doing that's young right now and is everywhere, man. Keldon Johnson, man. KJ. He's doing it. He's doing it, man. You see him. I mean, what do you think about him, man?
I've told you this before. Like, I love Keldon. Keldon's the one guy who has his growth and development from Boston to bubble this year to the way his team talks about him, his ability to space the floor and shoot from three, his body allowing him to handle contact and absorb contact and play through it, his defensive ability. Like, these are all things that make Keldon Johnson really, 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 really good. And if he continues to ascend the way he did over this past season, I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy, and he could possibly be your next superstar, which is why I say, if you're going to trade anything, nothing's off the table. But I'm at least putting a really, really high dollar value on Keldon Johnson.
No doubt. No doubt, and that's one of the things that I talked about in this last podcast that I had with Jeff is I don't have a problem with the team being bad and losing, but I know they need to have a clear definition of what they want to do. For example, they have a really tough decision this offseason. Are you going to go ahead and still want to keep DeMar on this team? And if he decides to leave and go somewhere else, just blow the whole damn thing up and just go young and see what you can get. And I'm okay with losing as long as there's a clear definition, meaning that these younger players are getting better. At least we know that we're going to have some pieces.
And I will add to that in the fact that if he decides he wants to opt out, maybe get with him and his agent, be like, hey, where do you want to go? How much do you want to make? Maybe we can work out a sign and trade for you.
Yeah.
Get something in return. That way you get what you want and you get to go where you want, and we at least recoup something for you.
Yeah.
And even if he doesn't leave, if you'd still like to move on from LaMarcus and get something in return, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
Like, nothing in this roster is untouchable, and as much as Patty Mills is kind of the heart of this team, like, even Patty Mills is on the table, man. I see the way the West is structured, and you have to be really good if you want to claw through that mess.
Yeah. There's too much talent here, and this, like you said, the Spurs need to do something. There's a lot of
talent, and there's a lot of young talent too. Like, there's not a whole bunch of Lakers and Rockets that are, filled with aging vets.
Yeah,
there's a lot of young, talented teams out there.
One of the teams that I think is actually going to start making some waves here, if they can get a decent enough coach and he can get them playing together at a high level because of all the young players they have, are the Pelicans, man. If they can get
Yeah,
their stuff together, better watch out. And they could easily surpass the Spurs because of the talent level that they have on that particular team. So
yeah.
again,
I mean, I think because of the talent level, they're already past the Spurs.
yeah,
Like, I mean,
yeah,
if Zion would have played all year long, the Spurs wouldn't have
yeah.
beaten them in the stands.
Look at what he did when
uh,
they did come to San Antonio.
Brandon Ingram's a really good piece. If you could possibly trade Drew Holiday and get something of value in return over there, you've got the makings of a team that can really, really start to make a push to at least the bottom part, 5 through 8
Yeah.
in the Western Conference. And with Zion's development, sky's the limit.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, Pledger. If we're talking about next season here, I see the Spurs, and honestly, man, I got to be honest, based on the talent that we see in front of them right now, going into, let's say, this upcoming season, I'd have to say the Spurs are either going to be a solid 10 or 11th best team in the West. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I've done this exercise before. I'll do it with you. In the Western Conference, and not just this year, let's say over the next three years. Okay?
Okay.
Let's start at the top and work our way down. Lakers. Better? Next 3 years?
Yeah, I would say so.
Clippers. Better? Next 3 years?
Yes.
Denver. Next 3 years. Built better?
Without a doubt.
Utah. Next 3 years.
I'd have to say yes again.
All right. Houston. Built better over the next 3 years than the Spurs?
That's where you get me with the question mark. They have potential, but built better, I don't know.
Who's built to compete, as in, top of the Western Conference? Who's
I'd
more
have to
built
say
to compete over the next
I'd have
3
to
years?
say Houston is better in the Spurs in that regards for competing in not only the regular season,
Because you have two superstars there.
yeah, exactly.
New Orleans, better?
Yes.
Memphis, built better?
Yes.
Trying to think of
the Jazz. We haven't even mentioned the Jazz. Did we mention the Jazz?
No, we mentioned Utah.
Okay.
We mentioned Utah. They were fourth. Because I was trying to go down the stand. Dallas, built better?
Dallas. Yes, Dallas.
Okay, so that's 8 teams right there. I'm going to keep going. I said New Orleans. I said Memphis. I said Dallas. Phoenix.
Yeah, I got to say yes again. They're young talent pool, Even though they're unproven, they still got a lot more talent.
That's 9. Golden State, built better over the next 3 years?
Emphatically, yes.
That's 10.
10.
Here's an easier way to possibly do this. Name the teams over the next 3 years that aren't built better than the Spurs.
We even forgot to throw in Sacramento.
And we forgot Portland.
And forgot Portland.
That's who we forgot.
Yeah. So I'd have to say, wow. In front of them right now,
So right now, looking at the roster now and then projecting forward over the next 3 years, which teams in the Western Conference are built worse than the Spurs?
Wow. Not very many, man.
I can only name 2 teams.
Maybe Sacramento.
The Sacramento Kings and the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's what the Spurs are looking at. Which is why I've been a proponent of, if this isn't it, and we know it's not, blow it up. Blow it up. Take your high-priced talent, drop down under the salary cap, afford yourself some space by trading away, whether it's LaMarcus or DeMar. Like, if there's a way if there is any way that the Bulls would want for their young talent to get kind of a go-to scorer, whether that's DeMar or whether that's LaMarcus, and you could pry Lauri Markkanen off their hands, I would do that in an instant because he is a stretch four, while not a great defender, that gives them the floor spacing that they need for their guards that like to slash, like whether it's DeMar or whether it's Lonnie or whether it's DeJounte, like the slashing guards that don't have a great outside game. He helps to provide that spacing, and then you can play Trey Lyles at the 5, which gives you more spacing, but he's also that glue guy that's just going to go get you rebounds. Like, that's a possible fix, I think, for this roster in terms of just being able to, like, you're going to have to score points. Like, you're not going to play these, like, 98, 87 games like the Spurs are used to playing back in the 2000s. Like, that's a thing of the past. You got to get used to these high scoring games that we saw in the bubble pop.
Yeah.
But embrace it. See if you can go get a Lauri Markkanen from Chicago, and you open up cap space. Maybe you take on an Otto Porter who can also play the 3-4 role for you, maybe coming off the bench if he's healthy, and he's a good guy that, in limited capacity could fill a role for you as kind of a role guy. I know he's making a lot of money, but you have to take that money on to get money off your books to make the salaries match. But it's a salary that would also come off your books at the end of next year too. So there are moves like that. If Brooklyn wants to pair a third star with the Kyrie and Kevin up there, if Boston would like to do so, I'm about shaking it up because I see what's in front of you, and the path to get there, it's not what we've seen.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one because if the Spurs don't do something,
they can call me a riverboat gambler all they want. I'm a realist, and I just see what's in front of them.
No, it's true though because of the talent pool that every other team has in front of us, and if the Spurs don't watch it and they wait too long or they make the wrong decision, surely but slowly we could see this team slip even past the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that's not a good thing.
That's a very bad thing.
Very bad thing. But I understand what you were saying too when you were saying no player is off limits, and we can circle back to one Malik Rose. And I always tell this to Spurs fans: never get attached to players, because at the end of the day, the NBA is a business, and any one player can be traded if something is just sticks out at us where you got to have it. This is going to make you better. You got to pull the trigger on that. And unfortunately, sometimes Spurs fan favorites got to go,
And here's the thing, too. If it wasn't for trading a fan favorite, you might not have that title in 14.
True that. George Hill.
Because George Hill netted you Kawhi Leonard, which puts you on the path to staying relevant late into Tim's career.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was a good analogy there. Good drop of knowledge there for the Spurs faithful here, because, we have a lot of people who revert to doing the trade calculators and the trade simulators. It's a trade. It's a fix.
The thing. In San Antonio, is any fan really impressed with anyone to a point where they're like, we can't get rid of him? I know I have my Keldon love, but I have reason for that. Just because of the scratching the surface potential. And I want to see, what the other 3 boxes on this lottery ticket show me, if I get the triple gold bar or not. But Lonnie Walker is beloved, and he's a great dude. Like, he is a great guy with a great story, and everything that's come out about him during the pandemic. Like, I love him.
Yeah.
I don't know what he is. Like, he doesn't seem to either fit or he's hesitating within the offense. It's one of two things, and I can't figure out who Lonnie is or what he does best.
He's the enigma.
And he's not off limits.
Yeah.
He's definitely not off limits. Like, DeJounte Murray, did we see his peak before the injury?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
Because it feels like it. It feels like he's kind of plateaued off here lately.
I'm willing to give him one more season before I make my assumption.
I'm not willing to say that he's not off the table, though.
No, I'm not saying he's off the table.
There may be something there, but at this point, I'm like, let's roll it through, because there's a lot of people in front of us, and I can't continue to wait year after year after year after year to see if you're finally going to take that next step.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's the nature of the beast. You know, if you wait around too long, if you're just too hesitant to not make a trade, make a deal, you're just going to be stuck in limbo forever, and it's going to take that much longer to get to the promised land.
I know Brian Wright watches your podcast, so I just want to say this to him. Brian Wright, if at all possible, if you can go get Lauri Markkanen this offseason, do it.
There you go.
Also, I'd like you to draft Saddiq Bey at 11.
Oh, Saddiq. Man, you're going to start all sorts of stuff now, Pledger. You know, one of my good friends, he's all for Obi Toppin. He's like, what if Obi Toppin drops to 11?
Not falling to 11. That's the problem.
That's what I keep telling him. Like, we don't listen.
I'm being realistic about who's getting taken at 11. And Saddiq Bey, if you look at him, he's a little bit like Rudy Gay with a better three-point shot. Like, he shot 45% from three from Villanova. He will play some defense, and he can play, multiple positions. He's 6'8", so he can play three, he can play four. Like, you don't need him to be the superstar, but if he develops into it, great. But he can at least provide you some scoring punch and floor spacing early in his rookie year.
Yeah, I think there was another another big man that the Spurs were looking at? I think his name was Patrick Williams. If memory serves me correctly.
Patrick Williams, the 6'8" kid out of Florida State with the crazy wingspan. Yeah. I'm not.
I keep hearing that. I keep hearing that guy.
Like, I get it in terms of the tools to develop.
Yeah.
But I don't want to develop them, man. I want somebody that's got. Like, I get it. Like, Chip Ingram's a master, can fix shots, but, we're trying to fix DeJounte's shot. We're trying to fix Lonnie Walker's shot.
Lucas.
I'm tired of fixing touch, man. Let's just get somebody that can make some buckets from deep.
Yeah, I got you. Even Devin Vassell's been thrown out there as a possible that could drop to 11 as well. So you have these supposed big guys that the Spurs have been looking at, but I got to say, man, out of all those, the sexy pick would be Saddiq Bey. I would jump out of my seat.
The two I like are Saddiq Bey and not James Wiseman, but Precious Achiuwa.
Oh yeah, we didn't hear a lot about him, but now that the Spurs were rumored to be taking a look at the kid, and you start looking at what he can do, he's an interesting pick as well.
He is a project though, but he's what the modern NBA is. He's pick and pop. He can roll. Like, he's athletic. He's got bounce. Like, he needs to put some weight on him, obviously, but he's the modern NBA's big man in terms of, he's a lot like Miles Turner.
Yeah.
Or Jarrett Jack. He's a bouncy, long, big man that can stretch the floor a little.
Yeah. If he needs to put on some weight and we draft him, man, we'll just put him here in San Antonio and feed some tacos to him,
Show him to a taqueria, man.
There you go. Go to the Jalisco, man. Get you some Big Red, and you'll be thickened up in about 2 weeks. You'll put on 10 pounds of either fat or muscle. Got to wear the stretchy pants. He can't be running around in the tailor-made windsuit, the jogging suit like you. And you got to be.
I'm just lucky. Clothes off the rack happen to fit my body pretty good.
Oh man, that was the inside joke there going on. Pledger wearing the fitted tracksuit. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Pledger is wearing the fitted tracksuit this morning.
Very dapper as always. Okay, so as we bring this episode to a close, I got to say it was a lot of fun talking Spurs basketball with you. Even though you are a Rockets fan, you were born and raised coming from Houston, Texas. So,
I recognize greatness, though, and the Spurs have been great over the past 20-something years. So it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah. So again, Pledger,
And
before
if you think about it, even before the championships, they were a great team. Like, this is a team that's missed the playoffs 3 times in like the history of the NBA,
yeah.
and never consecutively.
Yeah. So before we go ahead and bring this to a close, Pledger, why don't you let everybody know where they can go ahead and hear you on ESPN SA 1250 AM and 94.5 FM Monday through Fridays and also on Saturdays.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you tune in 94.5 FM, 1250 AM, listen online, espnsa.com. I'm third mic and producer of The Blitz, weekdays from 4 to 7. I host all the Sports Center updates during the week, and I am also the host of the Saturday Morning Hangover, 9 to 11 on Saturdays, where, you know, we just kind of get into it like this.
Yeah, well, I got a interesting topic for you. I'll talk to you about it off air for maybe a show topic. It's really funny though. It's really funny. It's really exciting when you think about it. All right, man. So again, we're thankful that Pledger donated his time to come out here and talk Spurs basketball and kind of go down memory lane here and share some of those behind the scenes stories. But you can also find me, Joe Garcia, for Two Shots Podcast on Twitter at TWOSHOTS Podcast. And you can also check us out at twoshotspodcast.com. So for James Pledger, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you for watching and listening to another episode of the Two Shots Podcast. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, be kind, we're out, peace.